Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary with the Get Some podcast. And my guest this week is...
This motherfucker Gary.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Owen with the Get Some podcast. Let's start with my schedule. Thursday, November 16th, I'm in Detroit, Michigan at the Motor City Casino. And then this Friday, November 17th, I'm in Atlantic City at Harrah's Casino. And then this Saturday, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland at the Maryland Live Casino. Next week, Thanksgiving weekend, November 24th, 25th, 26th, I'm in Naples, Florida at Off the Hook Comedy Club. December 1st, I'm in Kansas City at the T-Mobile Center. And then December 2nd and 3rd, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia at the Uptown Comedy Theater. Let's just finish the year out. December 8th through the 10th, I'm in West Nyack, New York at Levity Live. December 21st through the 23rd, I'm in Denver, Colorado at the Improv. December 29th, I'm in San Antonio at the Tobin Center. December 30th and 31st, like every year, I close out in Dallas, Texas at the Texas Trust Theater. Rough week for us Bengal fans. We lost to the Texans. I had a bad feeling about this week because it started off, I saw C.J. Stroud in an interview where he was talking about his dad. He recently spoke to his dad for the first time in a long time. His dad's in prison. And I went, shit. It's one of those things where you're like, God, you had to talk to your dad this week? Couldn't be next week. Couldn't be 3 weeks ago. It had to be this week when you're playing the Bengals. And I was like, oh, because that's like a movie. Some things are in the air, man. And I knew he was going to have a good game then. I was like, dang it. And he's on my fantasy team. I didn't start him because I was like, I couldn't root for him fully. I wanted to what a great pickup I had in fantasy, by the way, getting him. And then he has a great game. My other fantasy quarterback, Russell Wilson, had a great game too. So I was like, I'm doing all right. And then Bengals come all the way back. We thought it was dead. The crowd's leaving. And then we're driving. Tyler Boyd, who's the homie, dropped the touchdown pass. Could have won the game. Nobody feels worse than Tyler. And I knew immediately when it happened, I said people are going to go in on him. And I think most fan base in NFL was so rabid. Once one thing goes wrong, everybody jumps on, and we got to cut it. We got to do this. You lost the game. There's various reasons why I lose the game. Granted, that was a huge drop, but I was watching Ocho Cinco and Shannon Sharp's podcast, and I didn't think about it till Ocho Cinco said it. Last year, and this is the Bengal fans out there, think about this. Last year, the Bengals are playing the Chiefs. Travis Kelce, in the regular season, caught a ball, fumbled it, and Bengals got the ball back and ended up winning the game. And the timing of that fumble was fourth quarter, and it changed the real momentum of the game and everything. And I remember Travis on his podcast with his brother had said, it sucked. I feel bad. I let my team down. He was like, and I hope we see him again. I hope we see him again. And so when we played the Chiefs in the playoffs, I kept thinking about Travis Kelce when he said that. And I go, dang it. He said he wanted to play the Bengals. And I kept thinking, I didn't want him to fumble again. I don't wish bad things on him like that. But I was like, I want the Bengals to win, but I don't want to be because Travis messes up again. And they won it. And I go, I remember him saying, I hope we play him again. And now nobody remembers that freaking fumble against Cincinnati during regular season. And I really think, and Chad brought this up because I think Tyler dropping that ball, it's something in the stars. It's when you put all your effort into football, somehow football pays you back. And I think, and I hope, and remember this during my podcast, and play this back at the end of the year, there's going to be a point in this season or the playoffs that Tyler Boyd is going to catch a game-winning touchdown or a game-winning first down that's going to seal a win. And I'm thinking it's going to happen either to get the Bengals in the playoffs or it's going to happen in the playoffs. So just remember this. And if anybody knows Tyler, tag him. I still got your back. I still believe in you. I don't jump off people like that. I still remember the Tyler that caught the ball against Baltimore in the last week of the season that got Buffalo into the playoffs and knocked Baltimore out the playoffs that year. I remember that guy. I remember the guy when the Bengals sucked, and he said, "Okay, just remember, be here when this turns. Be here when this turns." I remember that guy. So I remember all the big catches Tyler had before Burrow got here, before Jamar Chase got here, before T. Higgins got here. I remember that guy giving 110, blocking, everything when they had nothing to play for. Yeah, I remember that Tyler Boyd. So, yeah, I let off a big fuck when he dropped the ball, but at no point do I want somebody else on the team. No, Tyler's still the homie. So, yeah, there's that. So now we got Baltimore tonight, and that's going to be a freaking doozy. Oh, my gosh. I hope I'm in here next week, and we're like, we're 6-4. It's going to be a tough one, but that's what you get in AFC North. It's a tough schedule, tough teams. As long as we got Joe Burrow, we got a shot. I don't care if until we're mathematically eliminated. Burrow's going to be ready. He's going to prepare properly, and he's going to have us ready to go. So, and the other guys too, but mostly Joe Burrow, baby. So this past week I was in Columbus, Ohio, and it's funny. You forget why you do stand-up sometimes. You forget how important it is to people. I had 3 different things happen to me in Columbus this weekend that kind of put things into perspective, so to speak. You forget what we do. I saw Mike Epps on some – he was on the Breakfast Club, but this interview was years ago, and he said like once he stopped worrying about money, he realized like you only make so much money. You can only buy so many cars. You can only do this, this, and this. He goes, well, it doesn't really in the end make you super happy. It does help, but it doesn't make you super happy. He goes, I just telling jokes makes me happy. Doing stand-up makes me happy. And I was like, yeah, I feel that way too. So a guy comes up to me. I do meet and greets after my shows. And this dude comes up to me and he said he's a ex-vet. And I'm so glad I did some military jokes that show. And he said he's been dealing with PTSD. He's been on medication, in and out of hospital, things like that. And he said, man, I'm not on medication anymore. He goes, and I came across a joke of yours you said about the military. He goes, and it was so accurate. He goes, and I'm not on my meds anymore. And whenever I feel down, I pop a video of yours on. He goes, and he was just telling me how much my stand-up has helped him. And I was like, man, that was heavy. It was a heavy conversation to have in 1 minute. It was about a minute, 2 minutes we talked. And I just thanked him, man. I said, thank you, man. It means a lot. Thank you. And then I get a message from a woman who says she lost her son the week prior and she hasn't smiled or laughed since her son passed away. I mean, how could you? And then she came to my show and she said, "It's the first time I laughed since my son passed." And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. This week was heavy in Columbus. It was a heavy week. And I'll get into why it was so heavy here in a second also. And then, as if the PTSD and the lady that lost her son wasn't enough, then a guy sends me a message and said, you know what? Let me see if I can find it. I'm not going to read word for word, but this is important. I don't want to misquote or say something that didn't have me. Where's this guy at? Okay. He said, here it is. He said I'm going to paraphrase. I don't want to read it word for word, but he said, He said, one of the last things me and my old lady got to do with her cousin. Well, I am going to read it. Jeez. Good with her cousin was see you Thursday in Columbus. So this guy was at my show with his girlfriend or wife in Columbus last week. He said they came to the meet and greet, and I took a picture with his wife and her cousin, and the cousin passed away yesterday. And I went, whoa. So then I messaged it. When I see like that, I'll message back, and I said, I'm sorry, man. I said, did we take a pic together, and can I see it? Because I like to put a face to it. And he said, of course. He goes, I'm still in shock. I haven't seen the picture yet. I'll send it to you when I talk to her sister. And then he sent it to me, and he asked me not to tag him or anything. And he said he didn't want to be tagged. I get it. But I got to see the lady, and then when I saw it, I go, oh, yeah, I do remember them. I do remember them from the meet and greet. And so it was just like those few things kind of help put things into perspective a lot. And last week was really heavy for me because, on last week's podcast, I talked about not seeing my son for the last 3 years. And I was very careful in my words. I was very careful not to put blame. I was very careful not to act like throw anybody under the bus, be mad at anybody. And here's the thing. I knew when I made the post, and I made the post for me, nobody else. I wanted to make the post. And, you get a lot of comments. And I know when you make a post like that, you're going to get good, you're going to get bad. And like I always say, I go, these people that say bad things on social media make these comments. I never meet them in real life. And so I was very careful not to be in the blame game, so to speak. And when you say you haven't seen your son in 3 years, some people want to be like, well, I can't believe a mother would turn their kids against you and a mother wouldn't let the kids see you. And other people are like, the kids are adults. They're like, you must have did something for your adult children. They're old enough to make their own decisions, so you had to do something. And it just becomes ugly. And that wasn't the goal of the post. The post was basically I miss my son. I got to see him. I'm proud of him. I miss him. I love him. I just want to have a relationship with him and my daughter. And, so I read the comments and I let them go. I don't read all of them. Obviously, there was thousands last week. But even when I see them, I'm not going to respond. I don't take them serious like that. Nobody knows the ins and outs when somebody gets a divorce or why the kids aren't talking to me. You don't know. And there's some information I'm willing to share and some I'm not. That's my prerogative. One thing I will never do, I'm never going to just go on the attack of their mother, my ex-wife. Because I think, and this week really helped me with the guy that came on through with the PTSD and the woman that lost her son and then the guy that said his cousin passed. Especially when the woman said she lost her son, because I was just like, man, I don't want any more time to pass. I don't want nothing to happen. I think with my daughter getting ready to graduate college, it hit me that I dropped her off. Me and my ex dropped her off at her university her freshman year. Like, she left, we all flew out together, moved her into her dorm. I remember I actually, my unmechanically inclined ass actually put some stuff together, like a dresser and a bed, and I was like, whoa, shocked myself with that one. It's funny when you can read the directions and do what it says and you have the right tools. But I just remember that was a good time. That was a good time dropping her off at college. And since then, just haven't seen her. Haven't talked to her, and she's getting ready to graduate now. So her entire college years I've missed and I can't get back. And this lets you know people don't know what they're talking about when they say things like, man, you got to call her. You got to text her. I go, yeah, I know. I've done that. I've tried that. Just hasn't worked. I've been to, I went through university and knocked on her door and she didn't answer. I left a note on her car and I sat in the parking lot of her apartment complex for like hours just hoping to see her. And maybe at that point I would have said something and talked to her, but she never came out at that point. And then, I remember I was going to Hawaii and I asked if either of my kids wanted to go. And no, they didn't want to go. So it's just like, I'm going to keep trying. And hopefully one day it'll happen. But the thing is, like, when the comments start coming in, I ignore them. I might read some of them, but I'm not responding. I know people don't know what they're talking about. And some is positive, and some, I ain't gonna say all, but some hit it on the head. Like it's a very logical, what can I say, not taking sides response, and others are just one side. Like if you start a comment off by, yeah, my kids don't talk to me, their bitch ass mom, my bitch ass ex-wife, I'm like, okay, we're done here. Oh, that was a lot, dude. And you don't even know me. So people don't know what really happened. And I think it's so easy to try to make somebody the villain. Like, I want to make my ex the villain. My ex wants to make me the villain. And in the end, it just draws a bigger wedge and nothing's going to get accomplished. And so last week, my ex made a post about me after that video. And I think with me, man, I'm so careful in my words not to blame her for anything. Because I think when a divorce happens, you look at the bad. All you can think of is the bad in somebody. They did this. How could they do that? And you forget the good. You forget all the good in somebody. And the longer things go by, the more bitter you get, the more upset you get. And if you don't have the right friend group, right people around you, just nothing gets better. So initially, when I saw my ex respond with her post, and I'll read it. I'll read her post. It says, all kids want their parents to be happy. When you come to the internet and tell only half the story for sympathy, so what did you do? How did y'all get here? If you wanted healing, you would have reached out to a family therapist, called, text, or sent this video directly to them. And then she said, you don't seem to have empathy for their feelings. You have done some foul things, but I still greet you with a smile. In conversation, I try to keep us focused on track so we don't resort to blame or finger pointing. I remind them of your birthday and Father's Day. I encourage them to give you a second chance. I share info with you about them because I hope that if the tables are turned, you do the same. And then you come to the internet with a video of the result, but not the reason. I just don't understand how this helped anything. At this point, I don't know what to believe or how to deal with you. Here's the thing. We're divorced, so she doesn't have to deal with me anymore if she doesn't want to. I'm trying to have a relationship with the kids. And I think I want to respond. I want to lash out. I want to say, well, you did this. And then she could be like, well, you did this. It reminds me of like why you need a third party in situations, because a buddy of mine said when you get two people at odds, both of you are coming with your ace cards. Well, you did this. And it's like you're playing cards and you all got aces. Well, you did this and you did this and you did this and you did this. And in the end, it doesn't help anybody. So what I want to do is I want to tell some good stories about my ex, about who she is as a person. So it's funny. I always say it's funny, but when we met, I had just got to LA and we had more of a phone relationship for the first year. I'd see her out at social events and she'd see me. And then we finally started dating, and we started dating right when I got the hosting job on BET. And so I was like, oh, things were happening pretty fast for me. And I was living at the time in LA with just a gangster drug dealer that I didn't know. I'm naive. White guy from Ohio, small town, joined the Navy, got out of the Navy, didn't hang out with none but Navy guys. I get to L.A. and I don't realize I moved in with a big-time drug dealer. And so I'm seeing a lot. I don't need to get into it, but I saw a lot my first year in L.A. I saw a lot of drugs, saw hookers, saw just gangsta shit that if I told all the stories, people would be like, really? But people that know the dude I live with, he's in prison right now. But if people that know him, that know the real story, they're like, okay, yeah, you live with a real one right there. But I remember me and him, we lived together, right? So he asked me to house sit for him. And I'm living in a small apartment in North Hollywood. I got a roommate. He says, he goes, yo, G, man, I'm leaving town for a couple months. I was wondering if you could house sit for me. Couple months he's leaving town. I said, let me go look at the house. I go to the house. It's his fat-ass crib in Bel Air. Fat. I was like, what? I'm out. I got my roommate this month, and next month's right. I go, find a new roommate, bro, I'm out. So I move in with this guy, right? And the first month was great. He was never there. I put pictures of me on the wall. I'm bringing girls over. Everybody thinks this is my shit. I'm talking, it had a pool. It had an inside and outside jacuzzi. We had a sauna inside. It was a fat-ass crib, right? Had some epic parties at that crib. And but then I guess the lease was up. I don't know. We had to move. So we move in together. We move into another house, which is another fat-ass house, but not as fat as the first one. So now we're living in another part of L.A. And long story short, I'm home one day and the landlord shows up and was like, "Oh, you haven't been paying your rent." And I go, "Yeah, I have." So I was paying my half, but he wasn't paying his half. And I go, "Oh." And then I started to see a lot. I started to see drugs. I remember one time I came home, and I can share the story now. It's 20-some years ago. I came home one time off the road, and there was 2 girls in my bedroom, bad-ass chicks. And I go, oh. And I was like, first I was a little taken back, like, why are these girls in my room? And then I go, oh, sorry, we didn't know you were coming home today. I said, all right. So I go to my boy who I'm living with, and I go, yo, dude, what's up with the girls? He goes, oh, yeah, I was looking out for them this week. Long story short, they were high-price hookers, high-end call girls. They were probably going to the Palisades or Hidden Hills or Beverly Hills. And all my roommate was doing was basically making sure they got their money and sat in the car and make sure nothing funny happened to them. But while they were in town, in between gigs, they're staying at our house. I'm not home. At this point, his cousin's living with us too. So they're in my room. And then he was like, yo, I remember he goes, yo, man, yeah, they leaving tomorrow, man. I mean, I could bring them to my room, or if you want them to stay here, it's cool. And the way he said it's cool was like, if I want to do something, I could do something on the house. Now, I'm young, man. I don't know any better. I'm freaking out a little bit. I was like, no, I'm good. Now, take divorce, Gary, years later, yeah, I would have had a ball that night with those 2 girls. But I'm still out of it at this point. I'm like, no, I'm good. So they left. Now, when the girls moved out of my room and moved into my roommate's room, I'm sure he had a great night. I was pissed. I'm in my room like, motherfucker, this is my space. This is my room. And then I started looking around my room. My room smelled amazing. They washed my sheets. They washed my bed. And they weren't doing tricks in my bed. They were going to other people. So I don't want people listening to this thinking, oh, they must have been tricking off in your bed. Fucking no. They were going somewhere else. And so now my room smelled amazing. I looked over. All my clothes was washed and folded and hung up. My room never looked so good and smelled amazing. I was like, oh, wow. So, yeah, they could probably stay here whenever they want when I'm out of town. I was like, but that's just a story of what I was living with at the time. So then when I found out he wasn't paying half the rent, I was like, I started to freak out a little bit. And I'm starting to see things. starting to see drugs. I'm starting to see this, and I'm going, I can't be around this. I'm hosting BET now. I knew I had the movie with Jamie Foxx I was about to shoot. I was like, my career's kind of going this way. I can't be around this. So I had, and at this point, the Hooker Girls was a couple months before I realized he wasn't paying the rent. And so a couple months later in that time, I started dating my ex-wife, Kenya. And I'm telling her, and she knew my old roommate. And I just told her, I said, I can't be around this. My career's starting to take off. And plus I'm scared of going to prison. I'm scared of going to jail. So I basically was like, she went to the landlord, and me and her concocted a story that I got hired by Saturday Night Live. And I was going to be a writer, and you start off as a writer and then become a sketch player, then become a regular player. So I have to move immediately to move to New York. So that way I could break the lease. So I paid his half of the rent for the last couple months that he hadn't paid. And then I paid the next month in full. And I said, I'm out. Now, the house is also in my name. Couldn't be in his name. He's got a record. So the house is in my name. So he did put down the deposit. So when the deposit came back, it was coming to me. So then that is why I moved in with my ex-wife. So me and her concocted the story. I got out of that lease. I moved in with her, and it was supposed to be temporary, but it ended up being for the next 20-some years. But we concocted that whole story about the SNL thing, and then I told him, I said, my dude, I was like, I ain't going to give his name. I said, my guy, my roommate, I was like, yo, I'm out. I can't be around this man. I said, but I gave the landlord next month's lease. So he had about 6 weeks to find somewhere to move because this month's paid for and next month. So he told me, he goes, I get it, G. I get it, man. Yeah, all right, we good. So I'm still scared. 6 weeks go by. Now the landlord's like, you got to move out. Of course, this dude's a hustler. He's a gangster. He forgot all about that conversation. Now he's pissed. Now he's like, yo, I ain't got nowhere to go. I ain't know this was happening. And he's calling me. And I'm freaking out because I can't have some gangster after me. So thank God Kenya knew him and knew me. So Kenya went and had lunch with him and sat down with him and calmed him down. And she was like, Gary loves you. He did tell you this. And then it was almost like an aunt speaking to a nephew. And he goes, yeah, I know. And then he was like, I could never hurt G, man. That's my dude. I was upset. I was talking to him. But she calmed him down. We've been cool ever since. That's still my dude. I still go see him in prison. And, yeah, so she looked out for me on that one. But that's how we moved in together. That's the real reason why we moved in together. So she really got me out of that sticky situation with that. Oh, I remember I was pissing my pants, boy. And then she ends up getting pregnant, right? So she's pregnant with our son Austin. And I just remember we had the car packed up. We had a Honda Accord at the time, and I had a Chevy S10 pickup, and she had a Honda Accord. And we had the Honda Accord packed with all the baby stuff. Like, so she goes into labor, we're good to go. And me and her went to go see a movie, and we got rear-ended. Boom! Guy hits us from the back, and we're in my truck. And honestly, thank God we were in my truck because it probably took less of a pounding than if we would have been in a car. So I remember she goes, we got to go straight to the hospital. So we get rear-ended, talk to you real quick. She didn't feel right. So me and her rush to the hospital, and they said, yeah, she's going to go into labor. And this happened on a Saturday night. And Austin was born on a Sunday. And I remember this because the Saints were playing the Rams on the TV when he was born. The TV was on mute, and I remember he was coming out, and I was kind of glancing at the football game too. This is when the Rams was good with Kurt Warner and stuff. And then, but I remember we were both scared because we didn't know if he was going to be okay, and everything ended up being fine. But I just remember when he was born, just how I was like, man, it's the first time I've seen what a woman goes through with childbirth and how they bond with the child like that. And I was just like, man, it changes you as a man, so to speak. And so we now we're just going, end up getting married, we have Kennedy, we're going through life, and then we decide to move back to Ohio. And this more than anything really tells me, can tell people what kind of woman she is when my brother called, before he passed away, my brother overdosed, right? And I will never forget this phone call as long as I live. Me and her was in bed, and my brother his phone would sometimes work and sometimes it wouldn't. Because, I mean, when you're on drugs, your life isn't stable. So a lot of times he'd Facebook message me, and that's how I would get the alert on my phone. And that's when I would hit him up, and always be like a different phone number. But he calls me this one night, and he's like, "Yo, Gary, can you call me, please? Can you call me, please?" And I called him, and I just remember he was crying on the phone, and I didn't know he was on heroin at the time. And he is just like, I don't want to lose my daughter. I don't want to die. And then he's just rambling, and the phone goes dead. And I went, what just happened? And then I don't know if I called him or his girlfriend ended up calling me. But it was like a couple minutes later called. And I could hear my brother moaning in the background. And she goes, yeah, he just shot up. He overdosed. Or I was like, what? So I called my mom. I told her to go pick up Dallas. I looked at Kenya, and I said, Dallas just overdosed. And I'm finding all this out. Like, I'm just finding out he's on heroin, right? And so me and her together got online and started looking up rehab facilities in the area. And my mom picked him up, took him to her house, and I told her, I said, keep him there. And when I find where we can get him into rehab, we're going to take him. But we're not going somewhere in Cincinnati. We got to get him out of town. Because the first thing I saw on the internet about heroin overdoses was you got to remove people, places, and things from their lives. They can't be around the same people. They can't know where they're at because they'll know where to go, places, and then obviously things. So we end up getting him in a rehab facility in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It was called the Quest House. About a 4.5 hour drive from Cincinnati. And I called my mom. It was $4,000 to get him in this rehab facility. Obviously, my brother and his girlfriend doesn't have it. My mom doesn't have it. I got it. My ex immediately, first thing, jumped out of bed, and I don't know if it was that night or the next morning. I think it was the next morning. Yeah, as soon as the bank opened, she went to the bank, got a cashier's check for $4,000 to put my brother into rehab. And she never questioned me about it. She never it's 80% failure rate. The chances of him coming through is not good. And she never did any of that. She went and got that cashier's check and brought it, and never once brought it up, ever. And then when my brother passed away, I got a call from this. It's called Guardian ad litem. I think I'm saying that right. Basically, I didn't know there was a custody battle with his daughter between the baby mama, and then my mom and stepdad wanted my brother's daughter. And I get this call like, are you Dallas Owen's brother? And I said, yeah. I'm sorry. Are you Dallas Randall's brother? And we got different last names. And I was like, yeah. And then she goes, it's weird. She goes, I've been to your mom's house, and there's no pictures of you in the house. And then when I asked her, did she have any other kids? Your mom said, yeah, I got my oldest son left home when he was 17. And she goes, I didn't know. And then people in my office said, that case you're on, that's Gary Owen's brother. And she goes, no, I didn't know that. So basically, this guardian ad litem was requesting for an emergency removal of my brother's daughter. She didn't feel like the baby mama or my mom and stepdad was a good household, to the point where they want to remove her. So I said, well, what are the options here? This is all new to me. She said, well, there's two options. she goes, we take her out of the home and she probably gets put in foster care. Or if you will take custody of her, temporary custody at least, then you can have her. And I went, of course, yeah. I'm not going to send her into foster care. And so it puts you in a weird situation because now they got to do some home visits before she can put in for this emergency removal. So that guardian ad litem came to my house the next day. And it was funny. Me and my ex, we'll make sure the house is all spotless when she comes over. Both my kids, no, all three of the kids was. I think Emilio was still living at home. My oldest, yeah, he was still at the house then. All three of the kids. It was funny when she walked into the house, the guardian ad litem. It was almost like it was a movie because I never forget. She walked in. My daughter was doing her homework at the kitchen counter. No TVs was on. My son was upstairs playing video games. Emilio, I think, was at work. It was like the perfect Midwestern home that she walked into. And we had a big house. And I'll never forget the guardian ad litem. She goes, I feel like this kid just won the lottery if she's able to come to this house. And so she goes, okay, I got to do another home visit. I got to report. Somebody else has to come to the house, check it out, and then we'll go from there. And this is all going to happen within like 48 hours, right? So at that point, I told Kenya, I said, well, we might be getting this baby, we might be getting this 2-year-old at our house. And she immediately went down. She got a car seat. She got like toys that a little girl would play with. She got some clothes because we had to be ready. If we got her, we were getting her. They were taking her out of my mom's house and bringing her right to me. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say anything to my mom or nothing because, it's weird. How do you tell your mom this lady in the court system doesn't feel like this is a fit home? And so, long story short, the judge ended up saying, no, just because these aren't the most ideal living situations, she's in no physical danger. So she didn't approve the removal. But I knew at that time, my other brother was dealing drugs still, and he was stealing and robbing and stuff like that. So I knew he was living at the house. So I remember telling my ex, I said, man, my other brother, man, he's there, and I know there's a lot of shit going on that my mom and stepdad they're turning their head to. And then we obviously knew that the baby mama wasn't ideal either. She's unstable. So we said, we're gonna go to court and try to get custody of her. And my ex was down. She was like, yeah, let's get her. So that was going to be a lot. For a variety of reasons, we didn't end up getting custody of my brother's daughter. I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole nother story in itself. But basically, we had to make a decision. Do we want to keep our house peaceful? Because the minute we take that little girl in, there was going to be a lot going on. Now people would have access to our house that we probably wouldn't, because that means the baby mama could come see her, and then my mom and everything. And I was like, man, if we get her, if we take 7 steps forward, she's going to take 10 steps back every time she goes sees her grandma or mom, because everybody's going to be mad at us. Everybody was going to be like, you took her from us. And because I remember when I called my mom to ask her, like, hey, I think we'd like to try to get custody of Dallas's daughter. She was like, are you trying to take her from us? Are you going to change her last name? That was the first words out of my mom's mouth. I go, no, why would you think that? We're just trying to give her a better life. And so, my ex was down through all of it. She was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try to get her. And I'm the one that ended up saying, let's fall back. We can't get her. It's going to really, we worked too hard with our kids in our home. It's going to really throw our whole lives upside down. I don't think we want that. We basically backed off for the well-being of our kids after I spoke to her, and we realized, okay, we got to look out for Austin, Kenny, and Emilio. We can't have everything just get thrown for a loop. And then at another point, another good story about my ex was she had a family member, a cousin, whose husband passed away. And, man, Kenya flew out to California to be with her cousin, slept on a hospital bed night after night because her family needed her. And I remember I told her, I was like, you go. We're good back here in Ohio. Just tell me what you need, but you go handle business. And she did. She was there for her cousin. You know, she's out there for like a week, sleeping on a hospital bed just to be there for her family. And, you know, I don't know a lot of people that would do that. And I think that's the thing, like, with the divorce and now the kids, you're in a weird spot as a dad because you're like, I've never had the chance yet just to not tell my side of things, not to tell my side of the story, to throw somebody under the bus or to put blame, just to tell them where I was at mentally, what I was going through. And hopefully they could see, okay, Dad's not perfect, but he's human. And I read somewhere where they said, I read somewhere online and it said, when kids go through a divorce, it's when they're young, they idolize their dad. And then when the divorce happens, they demonize him. And then as time goes by, they humanize him. So, yeah, there's a lot of things I'd like to change that I did during the marriage. But obviously I'm not perfect, but I'm human. And I know I love my kids, and I know I want to see them. And I think everything's coming to an head right now because this weekend when that lady said she lost her son, and then my daughter's getting ready to graduate college, and it just hit me. I've missed her entire college years after I dropped her off that time, her freshman year. But I think as far as my ex goes, I think what it comes down to is if I was in a situation where I was where my brother was at, if I was on heroin, if I was overdosing and I needed help, and somebody called my ex and said, yo, Gary just overdosed. We got to get him into rehab. Nobody else can help him. I am 100% positive my ex would go to the same lengths I did for my brother, and she would do it for me. She would be like, nah, I'll find. And the thing about her is, like, if she didn't have it, she'd find a way to get it. So I think that, to me, outweighs anything bad that when you get mad, you get through a divorce, you want to say about your ex. In the end, I think you forget all the good things. You forget the good qualities of why you fell in love at one point and why you raised kids together and you were a partnership. And you forget all that. You just think, bad, bad, bad. This is why I want a divorce, and she did this, and this is why I couldn't take it anymore, and in the end, it doesn't help anybody. And now we've been, separated for 3 years, and it's just been a long time. And I just want to have a good relationship with everybody. I want to get to the point where we're laughing at all the craziness that happened during the divorce. There was a lot of, I think when you're in the middle of a divorce and it's thick in the thick of it, it's just like, man, there's so much information coming and your head's spinning, you're listening to your lawyers, you're listening to other people, and you're just like, you freak out. And I think a lot of people, you should give there should be a window where you realize, okay, you got to give people a little leeway in the middle of a divorce, however they're acting or things they're saying or doing, because people are scared. And when people are scared, some people want to fight, some people want to retreat, some people want to make the peace, and some people just want to scorch the earth. And you got to be like, okay, when the dust settles and when everybody comes through it and you're all okay, then I think you can look back and be like, okay, well, obviously everything's not going to be perfect, but I think in the end, my wife's a good person. My ex, I'm a good person. And I didn't like when she made the post in response to mine. One, I didn't like the comments because of course I went to her page and started reading the comments. I'm not going to respond to them, but of course I read them, and it just got so ugly. It was ugly. It was just people just, when kids were adults, he had to do something. You guys deserve so much better. And I'm just going, these people don't know anything. And it just got ugly, and that wasn't the point of my post. It wasn't to pit anybody. It wasn't to blame anybody. It was just to say I miss my son. I was happy I got to see him, and I hope we can talk soon. And I love him, So, yeah, this podcast was a little deep, but I just want to I hope I can encourage some people that when you are in the midst of a divorce, when the dust settles, try to remember the good things that either your husband or wife did while you were married, because we like to think that it was just all bad. And it's not. There's no way you get married to somebody and it's all bad. There was some point, there were qualities about them that made you fall in love with them that you just got to try to remember when it's all said and done. So, all right. Well, this is a deep-ass podcast, but we'll see you next week, and we'll be back to fun and joking. So this is Gary Owen with the Get Some Podcast. See you guys next week.